everyone, my name is Elizabeth, and today I'm going to show you how to make a succulent wreath with fresh living succulents. So let's go real fast and look at what our materials we need are. So first you need a grapevine wreath. Mine is about an 18-inch size. It just depends on you how large you would like to go with. You can do a mini wreath or you can do an even larger wreath if you'd like to. So this is the first item you need. The next item you need are succulents. So I bought two different sets just because I like the kind of different colors and textures. Succulents come in a lot of different colors and a lot of different styles, so you do have a lot of options for what you want to go with when it comes to them. So I got this one here because they're really nice and large, and that's perfect. That's what I want for larger pieces in it. And then I got this one here because I have some different colors in it. So you can see some kind of purples and more blue colors. So it just kind of depends on what you want. I got my succulents this time of year at Home Depot, so they still have those on supply. So you can get succulents pretty much anywhere that would sell regular houseplants. The next item you want to have is some long fibered sphagnum moss. You do want to make sure that it's the longer pieces because there are some that just say sphagnum moss and it's just like little crumbles. So we want this to have a little bit longer pieces to it. So I got this one here at Home Depot also, and it says right on it that it's long fibered sphagnum moss. So make sure you have that. The next item you're going to want to have is spray adhesive. So any spray adhesive would work. Just make sure it's one that is able to do most kind of normal materials. We don't want a really heavy duty kind, so it just kind of depends on what brand you use is fine. But this is one I got at Walmart, so you can easily find spray adhesive at a craft store, hardware store, or a regular Walmart would be fine. The next item you're going to want to have is some floral wire. So the floral wire I'm using, I have long pieces of it, but you can also get this at Walmart or places like Hobby Lobby or craft stores where you can get it on a roll. And rolls are really good to use for it as well. So you don't have to have long pieces like I have. It could be one continuous roll, and that's fine as well. Alright, in order to cut your wire, you're going to want to have a pair of wire cutters. So any kind of wire cutters will work for this to cut the floral wire. And then you're going to want to have some sort of way to clip your plants. So I have a pair of floral shears here, but you can use any garden pruners you have or any kind of clippers that is used for cutting plants, that's fine. Then you're also going to want to have a hot glue gun and hot glue sticks that go with your hot glue gun. So once you have all those items together, you're ready to get started. So our first step for today is to get our wreath and our spray adhesive. You're going to spray a thick coating directly on the area where you want to put your succulents at. So I'm today going to only be doing like a lower portion, so I'm only going to be spraying that portion there. I'm not going to spray all of it, only where I'm going to be putting my moss at, okay? Now, when you are spraying, I highly recommend going outside and spraying. That's what I'm going to do with mine. So I'll pause the video for this and I'll spray mine outside just because this usually has a pretty strong smell to it. So go spray it outside, or if you're working the full time in an outside area, that's great. You're just going to spray only that one area that you would like to do. And then when I come back also, I'm going to have it so my workspace is covered with paper towels or newspaper, just in case some of that spray adhesive gets onto my table. I don't have to worry about everything sticking to it. Alright, so now I'm back with my wreath that has been sprayed. You can see where it's white a little bit. That's just from my glue. Okay, so I only did the portion where I want to be able to have my succulents go for this, okay? So if you want to do the whole thing, you can. Just know you'll need a lot more succulents for it, and it'll be a little bit more heavier of a wreath as well, okay? So our next step is that we're wanting to moisten our moss. So I'm going to go ahead and open my package up. And I'm just going to kind of grab a little clump of it out. Okay, so we can see here nice long pieces of it, which is great. And you're going to moisten your moss in a bowl or a bucket. This will help give your succulents a water supply. That way they're able to be living and getting their roots started with this. So we're gonna go ahead and put this into a small bucket or a bowl, and you're gonna go ahead and just get it nice and damp. And then when you're done, you're gonna squeeze the excess water from the moss and press it firmly in the areas where you did your spray glue. Okay, so I have my moss here, I've soaked it, and now I've squeezed a lot of the extra moisture out of it so that it's more damp rather than really, really full. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna go ahead and start pressing it onto where I put my spray glue. I recommend working just kind of one way and working down. Don't really kind of put it all over the place at first, because you wanna make sure you're putting it on thick enough. And if you need more, you can always moisten some more of that moss up, okay? So this is gonna give the support for your succulents so that way they can stick in there and they can start getting their roots. They'll be able to start growing their roots really well into this mixture of the sphagnum moss and the water, so you do want to make sure that you're putting a good amount. If you touch your glue, it will start sticking to you, so try to work kind of quickly. That way you're covering your area and you're using that glue to be able to have everything fully filled in. So I'm going to need a little bit more moss, so I'm going to moisten a little bit more just to cover all of my areas on mine. That way I can make sure that everything is fully covered with this. Alright, so after you have your area fully covered with the moss, you can see mine's really full and overflowing. We want it to be really full. We don't want it to be really scarce, because you want somewhere for these succulents to be able to stick to and to start growing in. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and grab your floral wire. So it's probably going to be easier if you guys have this on the spool. So if you have a spool of floral wire, that's perfect. Mine, I'm not. I only have it as the long pieces. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to wrap your moss. Just give it a little bit extra support. So you're just going to wrap it around and carefully pick it up and making sure you're pulling it really nice and tight around your areas. And since I have little pieces, I'm just going to twist my two ends together on it. That way I'm able to have it stay secure. Okay, and floral wire is nice. It hides easily. It's green, so you're not going to really see it too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep doing that for my areas, trying to get most of the moss just kind of extra supported. That's what I'm looking for this. That way everything doesn't just fall right off of it. So going ahead and twisting your pieces on there and making sure everything is really nice and tight. Okay. So I'm going to go throughout all of mine and just put some extra reinforcement pieces into it for the floral wire. So go ahead and do that and get all of your area nice and covered with floral wire just for that extra support. Alright, so once now you have your moss and everything wired to your wreath, you're ready now to start planning what you're going to want to do with your succulents. So in order to prepare your succulents for placement, you want to figure out how you want this to look, looking at what succulents you have and kind of figure out where exactly you'd like to be placing these. So we're going to go ahead and cut them out of your planter. If you have individual succulents, that's fine. You can just go ahead and cut them at the base where the root meets the soil. That way you're going to have a nice large piece of a succulent. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of mine just to show you. Okay, so I have mine right here. Now when you cut them, you want to give them at least a little bit of a stem, okay? That stem will be able to help so it can grow roots, and then you'll be able to place that inside. So that's a pretty good size large one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my succulents, and then I'm going to just position them on my wreath, and I'm going to see where exactly they would look best, where I would like the looks of them at. And so I'm just carefully using my floral shears, but if you have pruners or anything else, that's fine. You can use that as well. Okay. There we go. So I have all my succulents cut. So I'm going to go ahead and decide where exactly I want to put these. Now, one thing about succulents is they like to be able to grow really easily. So that's why this is going to be successful. That's why it's going to work out really well. You can actually break off the little lower pieces and put them back in a pot, and they will grow into another plant. That's pretty fun. So don't feel bad if you accidentally break off a leaf. That's okay. You can just put it back into the container and eventually it'll start growing into another plant, as long as you have the broken piece inside the soil. So that is a cutting is what they're called, when they're just little small pieces. So that's okay. So mine, I'm gonna break off a couple little pieces on here. Okay, so I broke off that because it's really small. But these leaves I don't want on my wreath because I want a nice clean stem. So I'm just gonna put them back into the container. And I will do a little bit of something to them later. That way they will actually be able to grow into a plant. So now I have a nice clean stem. So I'm gonna just kind of go around and figure out, okay, where exactly I want to place these succulent pieces at. So same thing with this one. It has a little bit lower of a leaf kind of in the way. So I'm gonna break that one off. And then I'm gonna use this one. And then I'm just kind of gently pressing them, kind of figuring out where exactly I want them to go in this. And it's okay if they don't stay because we're gonna make them stay here in just a little bit, okay? So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and figure out the placement exactly of where you want your succulent pieces to go. All right, so hopefully now you've been able to figure out how exactly you want your succulent wreath to look. Now yours will look different, I know, based off of whatever succulents you have to put into this. So I have my idea kind of laid out with how I like them, and then I have a bunch of little smaller ones that I'm gonna be filling around and filling those other spaces in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a hot glue gun. So I know you might be thinking, why would you use a hot glue gun on a plant? Well, the succulents actually are able to grow through the glue and through everything, so it'll be fine. It will not affect the plant whatsoever, which is a great thing. Succulents are pretty resilient with that. They're not really impacted by things. So you want to make sure you plug in your hot glue gun and you have extra glue sticks on hand in case you run out of glue. And what we're going to do is we're going to hot glue our succulents inside of the moss. So it's really easy. You're just going to kind of make a little hole, little area with where exactly you're wanting to put your succulent into that wreath, and making sure it's a big enough hole for that succulent to go into there. And then when your hot glue gun is ready to go, you're just going to grab your piece of your succulent and you're going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of it. Okay. And then you're just going to carefully insert it inside of that hole. And then just give it a couple seconds, helping to hold it, and then you can let it go, and it'll be inside the wreath. Now you can also go back in and you can pin all of your succulents in so you don't have to worry about them falling out. And all that is you're getting just little pieces of wire. So you can go back to using your floral wire again, and you can actually wrap it around the stem and help secure it into the moss as well. So if you wanted to do that as an extra added thing, you can do that to make sure that they're going to stay in there and you don't have to worry about them falling out. It's a good idea if you're maybe putting your wreath on a door. If your door is constantly going and opening and shutting, then you're going to find that it's going to need a little bit extra support. Or if you use really large succulents, then you want to probably put a little extra added support of a little bit of that wire onto it. So I'm going to go ahead now and go through and glue all of my succulents in. And as I'm going, and for the bigger ones, I'm going to cut little pieces of wire to help add to it. So mine is, once again, I said the longer pieces. So I'm cutting them into smaller pieces, and I'm just going to find some sort of angle to put this piece of wire at where you don't really see it. I'm wrapping it around my succulent, and then I'm going to wrap it around a piece of the wreath that's underneath there. That way it gives it that extra support and I don't have to worry about it going anywhere. So go ahead now and glue and wire in your succulents as needed, but go ahead and definitely glue them all in, and then we'll look at the end of our finished product. So when you're completed with it, you should have a nice full looking succulent wreath. So this is how mine turned out. So what's nice about this is that these guys will all continue to grow as long as you keep it a little bit damp. You should be having roots growing on these pretty quickly, which is good. And hopefully you're able to secure all of your succulents in there really good. With your wreath, you do want to keep it kind of on a flat surface for a little bit of time just so that everything kind of gets more secured into it. So I would just keep yours laying flat right now for a few days, and then you can go ahead and hang it on a wall or a door. Now remember, if you're hanging it on a door, that you do want to be careful. Just kind of pay attention if any of the succulents get a little bit loose or anything, to re-secure them on there with another piece of wire or a little bit more hot glue if you needed to get those on there. What's great about these is you can keep them natural looking, like how this one is here without a bow, or you can add a bow if you wanted to. You can maybe change out your bows on it also to incorporate the seasons, to do a Christmas bow or to change it throughout the year. So succulent wreaths are great. They will last a super long time, and they will keep growing and keep getting fuller and filling in. Now, what to do with your little pieces that were left over. Now, you probably had this thing happen to me, like I had to, where I was putting them in and little pieces would snap off. And no matter how careful you are, that just happens. That's just a succulent. So you will have the little leaves that are left over. Now, what you can do is with your container that you have, that you had the soil where they came from, you can just kind of bury them and plant them like a plant would be, and those will eventually start growing as well. And then you'll have new plants growing from those little pieces. So succulents are kind of like forever like living. They keep like breaking off little pieces and then they'll start new plants, which is pretty nice. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you're able to make your beautiful succulent wreath. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Thank you.